have a cautionary tale story time for you today about an owner who came to me saying, Monique, I am just not making any money with this property manager you referred me to. Can you figure out what's going on? And I did figure out what's going on. And even though I hear from owners quite often about wondering why all their profits are going to property managers, these 3 stories were kind of surprising to me of what was going on. So I want to tell you about that, but first I have to give you a quick background. I'm Monique Burns. I am coming to you from Detroit, Michigan. I'm actually just outside of Detroit in the dog park. And my husband and I started buying houses in 2007. We built up our own portfolio. And then from 2015 to 2020, we bought a bunch of houses and we renovated them. We put tenants in them, and then we sold them to investors who then used us to do their property management. So I did property management from 2015 to 2020. So I do know some things about property management. In 2020, we thought about it. We said, the money is really more in the house flipping and not so much the property management. So we decided that we're just going to sell the property management part of it and just continue to flip houses for quality of life, And so we did that. But after we sold the property management end, owners kept coming back to me and saying, it's so bad out there. What is with these property managers taking all my profits? So I came up with a solution, because I feel badly if I sell someone a house and then I've referred them, and I've done this more times than I wish to tell, that when I refer them to a property manager and then the property manager is sucking up all their profits, there's something wrong with this. So my solution is manage them yourself. Please just manage them yourself. And people say, well, but I don't know how. Well, I do. So I am making a course right now to teach people how. And in the process of making this course, I'm doing an experiment. There's one owner I decided to manage for strictly so I would have really good material to teach my course. And my belief is, if I give you my course, you can learn how to manage them yourselves. But I talk to owners all the time. You guys are really busy people. You don't have time for all this. So my concept is, I'm making this course, you watch it first, and then you hand it to your assistant. That's my dog, Stella. And from there, your assistant will know how to manage these properties for you yourself. And you'll see with these 3 stories why you don't want to just give it to a property manager. You want to give it to an assistant, and the assistant doesn't even need to be here. I have all this stuff solved in my course. All the questions you could have, like why you shouldn't do it, put them in the comments below. I have it solved. So before I get into the stories, which, wow, please do a like, a subscribe. It helps my algorithm a lot, and it keeps me super motivated. So I'm going to start with the least of the horrible stories. So A says, Monique, you told me to go use this property manager when you sold me these houses, and I did, and it's not going well, and I can't figure out why I'm not making any money. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll take him back just for this one guy. And so I placed all these tenants, because when I sold the houses, they were vacant. They were from owners that were unhappy with the last property manager. The last owner was unhappy with the property manager I referred him to. So they were vacant. I placed the tenants in all 3 of these. So I called tenant number 1. They're like, hey, remember me? Yes, I remember you. Well, I'm taking over the management. She's like, oh, thank goodness. I'm like, well, why do you say it like that? She said, well, because I could never get a hold of this property management company, and I was trying to tell them, even though my rent is only $75, I had a bad thing happen. I don't remember what the story was. And I needed an extra month, and I'm willing to pay the late fee, but please just understand I'm going to pay it next month. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And she said that instead, they never got back to her, but they took her to court and they put a judgment on her record. And next story, this was a weird one. So this tenant, talk about small world, I had this vacant house before I sold the house to, we're going to call him A, before I sold the house to A, and I had it listed for rent, and she called and she's like, oh, can I rent it? And I figured out through the process, I do a lot of talking with tenants. It's really important. These relationships, I'm telling you, are so important. When you can't get a hold of a property manager, you're going to miss a lot, right? So anyway, I figured out that she was living in a different house that A owns that I don't have anything to do with. I didn't sell it to him or anything, but I'm like, oh, A owns that house. So I consulted with A before I placed her in this house. I'm like, do you know anything about her? Like, what's the deal? She just needed more space. He's like, oh, fine with me. She was a good tenant. She always paid her rent and she was fine. So mid-month, I moved this tenant from A's house 1 to the house I just sold to A. So when I called her, I'm like, hey, I'm your property manager. Why are you so happy about that? She said that the property management company, even though it was all the same property management company, put a judgment on her record for the missing month of rent from that property A when she moved to property B. She had to pay half the month at the new property, but she didn't pay the other half of the month at the last property. Anyway, rotten deal. Both these houses, the owner told me he's gotten a lot of legal fees. Like, that's just so wrong. Totally unnecessary legal fees. Oh my gosh. And he said he never approved of any of this going to court. He didn't even get the chance to approve of it. House number 3, this is the one that put him over the top. He's like, this tenant you placed in this beautiful house that I bought, he's telling me, supposedly wants to move. And I'm like, that makes no sense. Why does she want to move? What is she saying her reason is she wants to move? And he looks in the portal and it says that she was refusing entry of the maintenance people and she had a Section 8 inspection and it failed, which meant Section 8 stopped paying the rent. So now she wants to move. I'm like, it still doesn't make sense to me. Why would she refuse entry of somebody making a repair? That makes no sense to me. I had to do some digging, and I did, and I got a hold of her sister, and her sister handed the phone to her. I'm like, what is going on? She's like, well, that's what I want to know. I can't believe they're making me move. I'm like, they're making you move? Yes, I had a problem. They came 3 times, and their maintenance people just couldn't figure out how to fix it. And I'm thinking, we renovated that house. There's nothing wrong with that house. What on earth could it be? And then it failed, and now Section 8 is saying that they're not going to repair it anymore, and she has to move. She didn't want to move. I mean, there's probably more to the story I don't know. Regardless, somebody just needed to talk to the tenant. I talked to her. I'm like, well, do you want to stay? Well, yes, I want to stay. I've taken over the property. It's not even in abatement. So was the property manager was it poor communication? Was it that you can never get a hold of them? That nobody talks to them? Was it intentional? Because if the tenant moved, the property manager then will get a new, they can charge for the tenant placement fee. And they always would charge like crazy amounts for a turnover, which I don't know why. That house was just turned over like half a year ago in mint condition. So I don't know. But that seems to be an ongoing thing. But I made the course. If you want to be on my beta, want to be one of my founding members, I'm thinking I'm only going to sell it to like the first 5 people, then I'm going to close it and I'm going to launch it in January. And my first 5 people are going to get the most coaching, which I'm going to then use to make my course even better. And I so appreciate you watching, and give me your email if you're interested in that. I hope you are.